For today's video, I'll be sharing my white Cloud Mountain Minnow care guide. These fish are very affordable, easy to find, beginner friendly and a popular choice in the aquarium hobby while working well with several different aquarium setups. As usual, there's a fully sourced article linked in the description which accompanies the video for people who prefer reading over watching. First, I want to go over the different varieties of white Cloud Mountain Minnows that you can find in the hobby. There are two main types that are far more common than the rest. There's the regular white clouds that have a darker body with pops of red on the tail, dorsal fin and sometimes snout, along with a pale horizontal stripe running down their side. Then there's the golden white Cloud Mountain Minnows, which is the variety that I keep. These have a yellow to gold body with some red accents on them, but because of their lighter body colour, that horizontal stripes tends to blend right in with their natural tone. A less common variety is the Meteor Minnow, which is a long-finned strain that was selectively bred by hobbyists. Some sources suggest that its original stock may have came from populations near Hong Kong rather than the usual collection sites, and this genetic variation made it easier to get the long fins to develop. There's also a few rare selectively bred varieties such as the pink or red forms, but overall they are very rare and difficult to find in the hobby. One thing worth noting is that the lemon white Cloud Mountain Minnow and Vietnamese cardinal minnow may look similar, but they're actually very different species with their own care requirements. So moving on to tank setup, and although the long-finned variety of white clouds can appear a little bit larger because of their flown tail, most varieties usually max out at around 4 cm, which is just over 1.5 inches. Despite their small size, these fish are very active swimmers when they want to be, and they love to dart around when given space. On top of that, they are a social species, and most sources recommend keeping at least 6 of them together. With that in mind, I'd recommend a 54 litre or 14 US gallon tank as a minimum for white Cloud Mountain Minnows. Some sources do suggest a 45 litre or 12 US gallon tank, which is what I personally keep mine in, with some sources recommending even smaller, but in my experience it does restrict their behaviour. One of my next goals for my fish room is to upgrade these guys from this 45 litre or 12 US gallon tank into a 54 litre or 14 US gallon tank, as I just think the extra 10 cm of horizontal swim space will make a difference. So getting into the actual tank setup, and although white Cloud Mountain Minnows were once thought to be extinct in the wild, 2 separate populations have since been rediscovered and both were found in habitats with dense vegetation. This can give us an idea of the kind of environment that they tend to prefer when living in the wild. Based on their natural habitat and my own experience when keeping these, I do strongly recommend adding plenty of hiding spots, be it plants, hardscape or decorations. In my tank, for example, the dominant male often tail fans and chases the non-dominant males until they retreat into the background, hiding in the plants. For whatever reason, then he decides to chase the female white clouds as well, so they're also in the background of the tank, so they breed with the non-dominant males, while the dominant male is proudly in the front of the tank all on his own. I see this play out daily in my tank, and it really highlights how valuable plant cover and hiding spots can be when keeping a group, because the males will spar for dominance. If you are newer to the planted tank side of the hobby, smaller but broad-leafed Anubias varieties like Anubias nana, caladifolia, nanacoin and coinleaf are excellent choices which are very easy to keep. Just remember that these get attached to hardscapes such as rocks or driftwood in your tank rather than planted in the substrate. Thankfully, these also stay compact and require very little maintenance, but their large leaves provide great cover. I keep an Anubias nana on the back left and right of my tank just so there's some reliable hiding spaces if needed. As for lighting, most entry-level lights will do just fine with white Cloud Mountain Minnows, as they don't require anything specific, and moderate lighting tends not to stress them out in my experience. On my tank, I currently use a Haiger HG76, which has worked very well for me so far. That said, new lighting models come out all the time, so I leave a link in the description to my regularly updated aquarium accessory article where I recommend the gear I personally use and think is worth the money as new things are released onto the market. If you're a regular follower of my channel, you may notice I run quite a few filterless aquariums in my fish room. But as you can see, this particular tank does have a small hang-on back filter because this is an unheated, room temperature setup, and in winter it drops as low as 18 degrees Celsius or 64 degrees Fahrenheit. While these fish can easily handle colder waters than this, my plants do tend to go dormant during the winter, meaning they stop their filtration capacity for the water, so we need those microorganisms in the filter just as a backup to keep everything safe. This filter is just an affordable All Pond Solutions hang-on back filter, which is very easy to find on Amazon in the UK, but it is quite bulky compared to some modern hang-on back filter alternatives on the market now. Next up are water parameters, and this is one of the biggest reasons why I think white Cloud Mountain Minnows are such a great fish in the hobby, especially for beginners, because they are very easy to care for and very adaptable. Starting with water temperature, and white Cloud Mountain Minnows are native to the temperate regions of China, and while many sources do list their minimum water temperature as 10 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit, they have been documented surviving in water as cold as 5 degrees Celsius or 41 degrees Fahrenheit. But like I said, personally I've only ever kept mine as low as 18 degrees Celsius or 64 degrees Fahrenheit, and they didn't have any issues in that water temperature at all. But their hardiness has caused white Cloud Mountain Minnows to be banned in certain countries, especially the colder regions, because they can easily survive in the wild even through the winter. This is because of thermal stratification, as a large lake won't start freezing over until all of the water in that lake has cooled to at least 4 degrees Celsius or 39 degrees Fahrenheit. Depending on the lake size, this can take quite a while, even if smaller puddles around the lake are already frozen solid. Once the body of water does start to freeze, the ice then acts as an insulator, keeping the deeper levels of the water surprisingly warm. This is how species like white Cloud Mountain Minnows are able to survive winters and even establish invasive populations in temperate countries. So the point I'm trying to make with this is never release these into the wild presuming that they can't make it through your winter, because they are surprisingly hardy. On the flip side of that though, white Cloud Mountain Minnows are a temperate fish and they can't handle tropical water temperatures very well at all. I notice mine behaving differently whenever my tank temperature creeps up to around 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degrees Fahrenheit, and they start to come to the surface as if they can't breathe correctly or something like that, but it doesn't affect the snails or shrimp in my tank. Thankfully, living in the United Kingdom, this only happens for a very short stretch of the year, and the rest of the time they are perfectly happy in their home. A lot of sources say they are very adjustable to their pH too, with anything from 6.0 up to 8.5 being perfectly fine for them, meaning a lot of people, if not most people, will be able to keep these in tap water without issue. White clouds don't seem that fussy about water hardness or GH either, and they do well in soft to moderate or even hard water conditions. The more I keep fish, the more I start to think that stability is more important than perfect water parameters, especially if you're having to chase these different numbers in your tank. So provided they are happy in your tank, just try and keep things stable. But the main thing to take from this section is that white Cloud Mountain Minnows are very hardy, they are very easy to keep, you don't need reverse osmosis units or heaters or anything like that for most people. Moving on, and we get to diet, and white Cloud Mountain Minnows are omnivorous, so they will happily eat a wide range of different fish foods readily available in the hobby. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, you can probably guess the two staple foods I use with mine are Hikari micro pellets and Fluval Bug Bites light blue formula. I highly recommend either of these if you just want one option, but ideally try and get both if possible, because in my experience across a lot of different fish species, these do seem to complement each other well and my fish love them. The Hikari micro pellets are based on fish meal and krill meal as their primary ingredients, while Fluval Bug Bites use black soldier fly larvae and salmon meal. By alternating them each day, you're just giving your fish a more varied diet with a broader range of vitamin and mineral sources for their health. For treats, I usually offer half a cube of frozen Daphnia or frozen Cyclops once per week, and my white clouds absolutely love both of them. I've also tried frozen bloodworm, and while my white clouds do eat them, they definitely seem keener to get onto the Daphnia or Cyclops when added to their tank. That said, treat foods aren't essential, it's just a nice change to their diet, and if I could only change one, it would definitely be frozen Daphnia because they love them, and in my area they are easy to find. I have caught my white clouds picking at the Hikari mini algae wafers that I add to the tank for my shrimp and snails, but because of the size of the wafer they are too big for the white clouds to eat initially, so they kind of nibble on them then go off and find other food sources. I have seen a lot of people report that their white cloud mountain minnows mostly stay in the top or middle levels of the water, but as you can see, mine tend to be bottom to mid dwellers. They will go to the surface during feeding time to get as much food as possible before the other white clouds realise there's food in the tank, but they will also happily pick it up off the substrate if they miss any and it sinks to the bottom. So the key takeaway for this section is that white cloud mountain minnows are very easy to feed. They eat almost everything I've tried with them, so you can easily get food that they will eat in your area. Moving on to behaviour, and like I mentioned earlier, my white clouds tend to spend most of their time in the lower half of the tank. This puts them right alongside my Neocaridina shrimp, Armano shrimp, ram's horn snails and assassin snail in this particular tank. Thankfully, they've never shown any interest in any of them at all, at least while I've been watching their tank, and I have seen them swim right past shrimp without trying to eat them. That said, I haven't seen them swim past baby shrimp in the tank, so that might be a different story, but my shrimp colony in here has maintained a steady population. One of my favourite things about white cloud mountain minnows is simply how active they are, because I do like fish that offer a lot of movement. Mine tend to go through bursts of activity where they'll shoal together, then the males will start sparring and chasing, then they'll start breeding, take a short rest, and then the full cycle just repeats. That said, while I would class them as social fish that do interact with each other, I wouldn't really describe them as a reliable schooling or shoaling fish. For example, my Harlequin rasboras will occasionally group up and shoal around the tank a couple of times per day, and that is far more consistent than what I see with my white cloud mountain minnows. Another example is my neon tetras that will group up and shoal if something startles them, like the door getting closed in the room too quickly. If that happens with my white clouds, in my experience they just go out to the back and hide in the plants. That said though, they are still very active and entertaining to watch, and personally I do think it's funny how the dominant male in my tank consistently patrols his territory and scares both the male and females to the back, where everyone else breeds and he's just there at the front by himself. I do want to quickly touch on tank mates, but full disclosure, I do want to be clear that so far I have only kept my white cloud mountain minnows with cherry shrimp, Armano shrimp, ram's horn snails and assassin snails. That said, based on their temperament and care needs, I do think that they would do perfectly well with a lot of other community-friendly fish species in the hobby. Other temperate species like Japanese Medaka ricefish, zebra danios or celestial pearl danios would work well due to their similar care and water parameter requirements. On top of that, I would guess they can also be kept with tropical fish that thrive at the lower end of the tropical water temperature ranges. So this will open up different types of tetra, rasbora, corydoras, gourami and a couple of other popular fish species. So moving on, and we get to breeding, and this has never been a big part of the hobby for me, and I don't take any steps to encourage breeding in my tanks, but with my white clouds, within weeks of putting them in here, I did have tiny little fries showing up in the tank. Because of this, I would guess they are very easy to breed. Like I said, I didn't do anything to encourage it, and I've honestly lost count of the number of white cloud fry that I've given to one of my friends. That said, the number of fry I see has drastically dropped off over time, and I do think it's because of the grown ram's horn snail population eating most of their eggs before they hatch. But if you are specifically wanting to breed your white cloud mountain minnows in your tank, I recommend that you go and look for someone who has dedicated breeding tutorials, because it's really not something that I try to do in the hobby. Anyway guys, that brings the video to an end. I hope it's been helpful. Thanks for watching and good luck with your white cloud mountain minnows. These really are a great little fish.